A piercing scream shattered the music at Cousin Morgan's wedding reception. I turned the corner of the venue hallway and stopped cold. My 25-year-old sister, Courtney, was backed against the floral wallpaper, physically tearing the shoulder of her expensive silk gown. Her own fingernails dragged violently down her bare arms, leaving bright red welts in the skin. She collapsed to the floor, gasping out hysterical, theatrical sobs, and pointed a trembling finger directly at my boyfriend, Derek. He stood completely still, 20 feet away. His hands pressed flat against the opposite wall. Before anyone could take a breath, my parents charged down the corridor. My mother shrieked, dropping her champagne glass onto the marble floor. My father lunged forward, grabbing Derek by the collar and screaming for the venue staff to get the police and have him locked away for assault. A crowd of wealthy guests gathered at the edge of the hall, their faces pale with horror. My parents wanted me to break down. They wanted me to beg them for mercy. I just swallowed the lump in my throat and tilted my head back, directly above Courtney's weeping face. The glowing red indicator of a high-end 360-degree security dome camera blinked steadily against the ceiling. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911 myself. My name is Vanessa. I am 29 years old, and my entire life has been defined by the suffocating shadow of a golden child. Growing up in Denver, Courtney was untouchable. My parents, Garrett and Erica, operated a highly lucrative real estate firm. And their absolute obsession with social status trickled down into how they raised us. I was the quiet, independent one. Courtney was the beautiful, dramatic centerpiece of their universe. If Courtney broke something, I was blamed for leaving it out. If Courtney failed a class, the teacher was fired. They built a cage of absolute delusion around her, shielding her from every consequence, never realizing they were handcrafting a monster. The nightmare truly began 6 months earlier. The first time I brought Derek to Denver, Derek is a systems architect. He is calm, highly analytical, and possesses a quiet confidence that completely disarmed me. The moment we walked through the front doors of my parents' estate, Courtney fixed her eyes on him. It was not a crush. It was the predatory gaze of an entitled child who saw a shiny new toy she wanted to steal. We sat around my parents' mahogany dining table, and Courtney immediately began crossing boundaries. She slid her chair unnervingly close to Derek. Midway through the main course, she rested her hand high on his thigh under the table. Derek flinched, instantly pushing his chair back and moving to the kitchen. When I quietly confronted my parents about her behavior in the hallway, Erica rolled her eyes. My mother accused me of projecting my own insecurities, claiming Courtney was just an affectionate person and that Derek was flattering himself. My father chimed in, warning me not to ruin a family dinner with my petty jealousy. Over the next few weeks, the harassment escalated from uncomfortable to incredibly invasive. Courtney began showing up coincidentally at Derek's private gym. She would wait by his car in the parking lot, wearing her workout clothes, asking for rides home. Derek explicitly told her to stay away from him, completely rejecting her advances. That rejection fractured her fragile ego. Then the anonymous messages started. Derek began receiving unhinged, highly explicit photographs and threatening text messages from multiple burner phone numbers. The messages taunted him, claiming his career would be ruined if he did not respond. Courtney used a free text spoofing application assuming she was completely untraceable. She forgot who she was messing with. Derek did not panic. He sent a single harmless-looking digital link back to one of the numbers, masking it as a response photograph. The moment the stalker clicked the link, Derek pulled the metadata. He tracked the digital footprint, pinged the exact internet protocol address, and traced it directly back to the wireless router inside my parents' house. The breaking point came a week later. My parents summoned us to their country club for what they proudly called a family intervention. They sat across from us in the leather booth, their faces twisted with self-righteous anger. Garrett leaned across the table, his voice dripping with condescension. He demanded Derek publicly apologize for leading Courtney on and humiliating her. My father threatened to leverage his massive real estate connections across Denver to completely destroy Derek's professional reputation if he did not comply. Derek reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and slid it across the table. It was the printed network log, highlighting the exact times the explicit messages were sent, perfectly matching the digital signature of Garrett's own home network. Erica immediately tried to snatch the paper, her face flushing crimson. She stammered out a pathetic excuse, claiming someone must have hacked their wireless network. My professional instincts kicked in. I am a high school administrator. I deal with manipulative behavior, severe bullying, and toxic family dynamics every single day. I looked at Courtney, who sat at the end of the booth, her jaw clenched, her eyes burning with pure narcissistic rage. I recognized the psychological spiral instantly. This was no longer about a bruised ego. She was gearing up to destroy him. I stood up, grabbed Derek's hand, and walked out of the country club without saying a single word. We placed my family on a strict, absolute information diet, ignoring their endless calls and blocking their emails. Which brings us back to the hallway at Cousin Morgan's wedding. Courtney had seethed all evening, enraged that Derek completely ignored her presence. She waited patiently until the reception grew loud, tracking Derek as he walked toward the secluded restrooms. She cornered him in the empty corridor, demanding he speak to her. When he coldly attempted to walk past her, she grabbed his arm, realizing she possessed absolutely zero control over him. She made a split-second, psychotic decision to burn his life to the ground. She ripped her own gown, clawed her own skin, and unleashed that blood-curdling scream. Courtney thought she had him trapped. She underestimated the man she was trying to frame. As a systems architect, Derek maps physical and digital environments for a living. Hours earlier, during the cocktail hour, he had already clocked the venue's liability cameras. He noted the exact blind spots and the precise areas of coverage. When Courtney approached him, he intentionally stepped directly beneath the unblocked line of sight of the ceiling dome camera. He stood perfectly still, keeping his hands entirely visible against the wall, perfectly framing his alibi as she began to tear herself apart. Garrett realized his daughter's charade was about to collapse when I pointed at the ceiling. He abandoned Derek, lunging directly at the venue manager who had just run into the hallway. My father cornered the terrified employee, aggressively jabbing a finger into his chest. Garrett threatened to launch a $1 million defamation lawsuit against the venue if they dared to show that footage to anyone, demanding the manager wipe the servers immediately to protect his daughter's privacy. For a terrifying, breathless moment, the manager hesitated, completely overwhelmed by the wealthy patriarch's aggression. I stepped directly into Garrett's path. I looked the manager dead in the eyes and formally invoked spoliation of evidence. I explicitly warned him that if the video files from the last 15 minutes were deleted, overwritten, or mysteriously corrupted, he and the venue would be named as co-conspirators in a felony investigation for evidence tampering. The manager froze, his hand hovering near his radio. He immediately locked the security system down, refusing to let my father anywhere near the office. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers walked through the front doors. They did not ask for my parents' version of events. They walked straight into the manager's office and pulled the digital playback. The high-definition footage played on the monitor, showcasing Derek standing like a stone statue while Courtney viciously and methodically attacked herself. The lead officer marched back into the hallway, pulled a pair of steel handcuffs from his belt, and locked them tightly around Courtney's wrists. The color completely drained from my mother's face. She collapsed against the wall, wailing about a misunderstanding. Morgan pushed her way through the shocked crowd of wedding guests. She looked at her aunt and uncle with pure disgust, publicly ordering Garrett and Erica to get out of her venue and screaming that they were permanently dead to her. The legal retaliation was swift, methodical, and absolutely merciless. We bypassed the slow churn of the criminal courts. The following Monday, Derek's attorney formally filed a massive civil lawsuit against Garrett for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. Along with the lawsuit came a devastating legal weapon, a massive discovery request demanding full, unrestricted access to Garrett's real estate firm's internal financial communications. Garrett panicked. He knew that a forensic audit during the civil discovery phase would expose decades of tax loopholes, shady property transfers, and unethical business dealings. Terrified of federal prison, my father made the only move he could. Over the next 6 months, he quietly liquidated 3 of his most lucrative commercial properties at a massive, humiliating loss. He drained his life savings to offer Derek an $850,000 out-of-court settlement. He financially crippled himself and destroyed his pristine reputation in the Denver elite, just to keep his firm's dirty secrets buried and to pay Courtney's exorbitant criminal defense fees. Derek and I packed our lives into moving boxes, completely severed all contact with the Mitchell bloodline, and moved 3 states away. We got married in a quiet, beautiful ceremony, bought a house surrounded by pine trees, and welcomed our daughter into the world. 4 years passed in absolute beautiful silence. We believe the toxic chapter of our lives was permanently closed. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up with a voicemail from an unknown number. It was Erica. She was sobbing hysterically, begging for money to post bail. The final twist of the knife had finally arrived. Courtney had managed to avoid jail time for the wedding stunt, receiving heavy probation instead. Shortly after, she hastily married a wealthy logistics executive named Cody Sullivan. Cody was smart, but he was blinded by her initial charm. However, Cody's legal team had forced Courtney to sign an ironclad prenuptial agreement before the wedding. The contract explicitly left her with absolutely 0 assets, no alimony, and no property rights in the event of infidelity. There was only one legal loophole in the document. The prenuptial agreement would be entirely voided in cases of extreme cruelty or domestic violence. 2 years into the marriage, Cody caught Courtney having a blatant affair with a personal trainer. He handed her divorce papers and ordered her out of his house. Courtney, desperate to secure half of his fortune, fell back on her favorite psychotic strategy, She planned to orchestrate a massive, bloody domestic dispute to invalidate the contract. But Cody was not a fool. Cousin Morgan, the only family member I still spoke to, had quietly warned Cody about the wedding incident months prior. Morgan secretly connected Cody with Derek. Knowing exactly how Courtney operated, Derek helped Cody rig his entire estate with hidden battery-backed cellular pinhole cameras. These cameras did not rely on the home wireless network. They uploaded high-definition video directly to an encrypted cloud server. When Garrett arrived at Cody's house to help his daughter stage the scene, they confidently unplugged the internet router and covered the visible doorbell cameras. They assumed they were completely invisible. They systematically smashed expensive vases, flipped heavy furniture, and Garrett physically grabbed Courtney's arms. Forcefully bruising her skin to make the assault look authentic, Cody sat in his car 3 blocks away, watching the entire performance stream live on his tablet. He called the police. When the officers breached the front door, Courtney began her hysterical weeping routine, claiming her husband had just beaten her and fled. Cody calmly walked through the front door behind the officers and handed the lead detective his tablet. The digital trap snapped shut permanently. The judge showed absolutely no mercy. Courtney was sentenced to 5 years in state prison for perjury, filing a false police report, and staging a violent crime. Garrett was arrested on the spot. He was formally indicted for felony conspiracy, evidence tampering, and aiding in a fraudulent scheme. The Denver Real Estate Board permanently stripped his license. Erica was left completely alone in a downsized apartment, her wealth gone, her husband facing prison, and her golden child locked behind steel bars. I look around my living room today. The fireplace is crackling. Derek is in the kitchen, laughing as he attempts to teach our toddler how to stack wooden blocks. The contrast between the absolute peace of my current reality and the chaotic wreckage of my parents' choices is staggering. For years, I carried the heavy, suffocating guilt of walking away from my bloodline. Society constantly pushes the narrative that family is everything, that you must forgive toxic parents because they gave you life. But I finally understand the psychology of the enabler's trap. By refusing to hold Courtney accountable when she was young, by using their wealth to shield her from every minor consequence, my parents did not protect her. They weaponized her. They built a cage of delusion. And eventually, that cage became a prison cell for their golden child. Enabling is not a form of love. It is pure cowardice, disguised as parental loyalty. When you grow up as the scapegoat, you are conditioned to believe that setting a boundary is an act of cruelty. You are taught that your comfort must always be sacrificed to maintain the family peace. But true peace requires a foundation of respect. And respect cannot exist where boundaries are constantly violated. If you are navigating the suffocating waters of a toxic family dynamic, I want you to internalize 3 essential rules. Rule number 1, enabling is not love, it is the ultimate betrayal. Protecting someone from the natural consequences of their terrible actions ensures that they will eventually face a judge instead of a parent. Rule number 2, the smartest revenge is preparation, not reaction. When a toxic person attempts to drag you into a screaming match, they want your emotional energy. Give them nothing. Silence, digital metadata, and hidden cameras will always defeat loud, theatrical emotions. Let them scream into the void while you build a flawless legal trap. Rule number 3, blood does not make you family. Respect, safety, and mutual care make you family. You owe absolutely nothing to people who use the word family as a weapon to demand your compliance and endure their abuse. I chose my family. I chose Derek. I chose my daughter. I chose the quiet, boring, absolutely beautiful piece of a life completely devoid of manipulation. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who shared your blood to protect your own sanity? How did you survive the overwhelming guilt trips and the flying monkeys they sent after you? Tell me your story in the comments below. And if you are currently holding on to a toxic family member right now, hoping they will miraculously change, share this video to remind yourself that the door is unlocked. You have the absolute right to walk through it, and you never have to look back. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there wondering, why on earth did Vanessa wait so long to cut these people off? Why did she even bring Derek into the lion's den in the first place? Let us talk about the psychology of the family scapegoat. It is a concept known as the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up in a toxic household, you do not just endure abuse, you are conditioned to crave the rare, tiny crumbs of normal behavior. One good holiday dinner or one decent phone call acts like a casino jackpot. You keep pulling the lever, spending your emotional currency, hoping that this time your parents will finally pay out with real, unconditional love. Vanessa was not being naive. She was addicted to the hope of a normal family, but hope is a terrible life strategy when you are dealing with narcissists. What Vanessa and Derek did next is an absolute masterclass in psychological and financial self-defense. Let us break down their street-smart survival strategy. First, they utilized the audit strategy. Notice how Derek did not get dragged into a screaming match over those anonymous threatening text messages. He pulled the metadata. He traced the internet protocol address directly to the parent's wireless router. Toxic people thrive in emotional chaos, but they absolutely drown in hard data. When you are dealing with a manipulator, do not argue about feelings or intentions. Audit their actions, bring the receipt. Second, look at how they went about building the case. At the wedding, Vanessa did not plead with the venue manager to review the security tape. She hit him with a strict legal term, spoliation of evidence. She weaponized his own corporate liability against him to secure the footage. And years later, Derek did not tell Cody to just confront Courtney about her lies. He helped him install independent, battery-backed cellular cameras. If you want to trap a professional liar, you do not ask for a confession. You build an invisible digital fence and let them lock themselves inside. Finally, we have to talk about the buyout. Derek hitting Garrett with a civil lawsuit for emotional distress was pure financial genius. He knew Garrett would be absolutely terrified of the legal discovery process opening up his shady real estate book. Garrett had to liquidate his commercial properties at a massive loss just to settle out of court. Sometimes you cannot get a genuine apology from an abuser, but you can absolutely hit the only thing they truly love: their wallet and their public reputation. Years later, the loudest revenge was not Garrett losing his license, or Courtney walking into prison, or Erica sitting alone in an apartment with no one left to manipulate. The real revenge was the quiet. It was waking up beside Derek without fear. It was watching our daughter grow up in a home where love did not come with conditions, where no one screamed to control the room, and no one had to bleed just to prove they were innocent. For a long time, I thought cutting off my parents meant losing my family, but I was wrong. I did not lose family. I lost a courtroom disguised as a home. I lost people who only knew how to assign blame, protect the golden child, and sacrifice the scapegoat to keep their perfect image alive. Courtney was not born destroyed. She was built that way by parents who mistook enabling for love. They rescued her from every consequence until consequences finally arrived wearing a badge. So if you are the scapegoat in your own family, hear me clearly. You are not cruel for walking away. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not obligated to stay near people who need you broken to feel powerful. Sometimes freedom begins the moment you stop defending yourself and let the evidence speak. And sometimes the family you choose becomes the first place you are finally safe. The verdict here is simple. Freedom from a toxic family is rarely handed to you. Usually, it has to be legally, digitally, and financially extracted. Your peace of mind is your most valuable asset. Do not let anyone, even someone who shares your last name, bankrupt your soul. Have you ever had to pull the plug on a toxic relationship? Did you use the audit strategy to finally catch them in a lie? Drop your story in the comments right now. And do not forget to subscribe if you want more street smart strategies to protect your peace, your sanity, and your wallet.